Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Greetings. This is the Fandom Collective YouTube channel, and we're doing this cool little private live stream, the live stream that you missed. What is up? We got myself, the Rookie Critic, and Flippity Flipped Out over here next to me. What's up, man?
What's up, man? How are you tonight?
Doing great, all stuffed and full and fat as my belly normally is, but that's not what we're talking about today. Did you want to show everybody real quick something that you got at the mailer today?
That's right. We got these new stickers. Let's see if I can. There they are. Yeah.
Nice.
These will be going out with Patreon members, of course, the FC team as well.
Hell yeah. Love it.
In addition to that, we have, let me get this real quick. We have got t-shirts right here. Oops, there you go. Those are going out to some select members who've already purchased them, and pretty soon we'll have those on Teespring.
Hell yeah. We'll keep you guys informed with that as we go. But for now, we are here to talk about some Star Wars stuff. Now, we've kind of avoided talking about Star Wars directly for a while, but why not throw it in the mix this time? We found out in some conversation that we've got a little different opposing views right here. So this is the perfect kind of topic we think we should do for this type of little video. So everybody's heard about a week or two ago that Star Wars the sequel trilogy might be uncanonized by Disney. And I think their rumors were more widely reported by Doomcock, but though he said it's by unverified rumors as well. And so nothing is confirmed at all yet. It's just been speculation by certain sources. When Palpatine was thrown down the Death Star shaft, he got blown up and went into some type of Sith mirror things. And there's something with one on Exegol and the Veil of the Force, which I don't know that much about because I think that's in one of the shows. I think, but it's like some kind of time distortion from what I can tell, and sends them into another universe or another timeline, I think is how that works. Correct me if I'm wrong, Flip, if you know or not. Sorry for not knowing it prior to, but it seems to be it. So from our universe's perspective, the main original trilogy one, he is just poop out of ours and considered dead. So that's how they would get rid of the sequel trilogy, from what I could tell. What do you think about that?
Well, I know we don't see eye to eye on this, but have you seen, and I should already know this, but have you seen the Rebels?
I've seen like up to the end of season 2.
Okay.
Stop watching after that.
The first 2 seasons of Rebels were mediocre, I think. It was really hard for me to swallow, and a lot of other people were really down on them because of the big change in animation style. And of course, he had a much more childish kind of look. But the story was also kind of weak in those very first 2 seasons. Get into season 3, and it's a little bit better. And then 4 and 5 were much, much better. They seem to get more serious and fall in line with what George Lucas's vision was and maybe some of the more adult aspects of Star Wars. But in addition to that, they also brought in the
oh my god, I can't remember the name of it, like an Outworld, I guess where the Veil of the Force is, and it's sort of like a time machine type of thing. Everyone freaked out about it. Ahsoka and Ezra, and I think obviously Palpatine manages to go into this mirror type world or dimension or whatever it's called. I wish I could remember the name of it.
But when I hear Veil of the Force through Doomcock's source, whomever that may be, that's what comes to mind first. And so I'm pretty excited about it. Yeah.
Okay, that's all right. Yeah, I'm taking the mindset of I actually kind of don't want it to be uncanonized. Now, that's not saying that I freaking like the sequel trilogy, because I don't. I think it's garbage. I think it's horrible. I think it's a waste of space. But I don't think that it should necessarily be uncanonized. And I guess we'll start with one of my points. This being is that I think that aren't you kind of tired of that kind of thing? Like with Terminator, do you like how they make all these movies and then they make another movie that's like, no, pretend those movies don't exist, and then we're just continuing from here to here now. And then they make another movie that pretty much also does that same exact thing with the last movie and start in the whole thing, starting all the way over again. And my other example would be X-Men. Now, a lot of people liked the direction that they went when they kind of changed the timeline a little bit and went to their different one after Days of Future Past. But I don't know. Ultimately, I feel like with the amount of movies they made, it just got more confusing over time with what is it and what isn't in that whole universe. And I mean, it's fine with it. I'm following it for the most part. Don't hate any of those movies. I don't like a lot of them, but It's like, I don't know, this seems to be a kind of trend then in the future that's going like, okay, so these couple movies weren't bad, let's just uncanonize them and start over again. It seems kind of like a waste of time and for the people that do get invested in it, like there are sequel trilogy fans. It seems kind of like, okay, we were pulling the other people's legs first, and now we're pulling your guys' legs now too. And it's just like, how can they decide what they're going to follow, who they're going to try to please? Who knows with that?
Well, you have a good example with Terminator. That particular franchise, after the second one, it had bounced around to multiple ownership companies and people who had their own stank on it, for lack of a better term. And that's a great way to, I guess, box in what you're saying.
Once they did Terminator 3, the one with the gold-haired girl, I can't remember. Yeah, Christiana looking. Yeah. There you go. And I thought it was okay. It was kind of, I was like, oh, it's fine. It's fine. It wasn't great, but it's fine. Yeah. Then they moved on and made the Salvation, yeah.
And I was okay with it, but I thought it was kind of unneeded, and it really didn't go in the direction that I think most of us wanted it to go, which was the war of the robots. Yes, there was a lot of war. They focused on new Terminators and things like that, but no, not a big laser battle, whatever, plasma guns going off in the 40-watt range. But it's still, they put in Arnold as a terrible CGI doppelganger.
Yeah.
Oh, cringy, really. When I first saw it, I wanted to like it so bad. I was like, oh, that's cool. But after review, I was like, no. And honestly, without a movie with a full Schwarzenegger throughout the entire thing, that's a tough sell for me and a lot of people. So it's a good way to say it. Now they're going to go and do this Terminator Dark Fate, and then that's blown. If they come back with yet another one,
yeah, it's like, why are they even making the movies? They should have stopped a long time ago, but they just keep on making them anyway. And maybe some people like them, but most people don't.
It's a good argument. It really is. I mean, I completely agree with you, at least with Terminator. With Star Wars, I see it as like this holy grail of what cinema means to me personally. And I think a lot of people do. And I know you feel very similarly. It's like, this is what majorly changed cinema and the technology within cinema, the way directors look at making movies, producers backing certain risky movies, a lot of different things, obviously special effects. But I think that if they had a chance to redo it, I know that the bare bones reason they're doing it is because Disney has lost a lot of money, not just because they completely screwed up Star Wars, which they totally did, but also because of the Super C virus and very bad management. That being said, if they tried to reboot it like Terminator,
they would need to make it in such a way that there is absolutely no question whatsoever, in my opinion, they should probably, if they're going to do it, if they're actually going to pull the trigger, if this is for real, I think that they should probably...
Well, it sounds more like they're rebooting it like X-Men. Like with Days of Future Past, they went back in time and just kind of stayed there, and then from there, its alternate timeline, pretty much. I feel that's kind of more what they're going with it. But in the same sense, still, like I felt any of those X-Men movies, from First Class and up. I actually liked First Class and didn't really care about Days of Future Past, but it's like, those ones were fine, I guess, to me, but I also felt unnecessary. You could have stopped at some point. It would have been just fine, too.
Agreed.
That's my main thing, too. It's like, you could just also not keep on making movies, period, with them.
Yeah.
Another point, but go on.
They could have stopped before Apocalypse. That would have been nice. I liked some of Apocalypse, but anyway, not all of it.
Yes, dialogue. Yeah.
I would want to have a hell of a test audience for it. I think they should do something where they maybe even leak the real script or something to see if people like it. I don't know. It's going to be...
See, that's actually part of my problem here with them trying to uncanonize the sequel trilogy and then trying to please other audiences, because we already know that there's the hardcore, diehard original trilogy fans that is the best, the golden thing that is great, and it is really great. And then there's the prequel trilogy ones where many people really hate them, but it also has a very, very strong base as well that grew up with it, and other people that like it for other reasons anyway. I think it's a good one that changes as you grow, as you see it. If you didn't understand the politics as a kid, I understand it perfectly as an adult, so different angles there with that. And the sequel trilogy is kind of in the same vein. It's got its section of fans, especially with the Force Awakens. I personally didn't like Force Awakens when they came out. Really, I was just kind of confused, and everybody
said, "Oh, the Last Jedi is gonna be good," and we know that story. Everybody's had that story pretty much, but that's got its base, and then it's like, so that's just kind of how it's gonna be. It seems if they're gonna keep on making Star Wars movies, but then if they go, okay, no.
But these ones are on canon now. And then, going forward, they try to make their next movies that goes after Return of the Jedi. What about so I'm imagining that a lot of people won't like those also. Like, there will be some that like them, of course. Oh, this was cool. Or it'd be compared to the sequel trilogy and going, well, this was at least better than the sequel trilogy. But it's like, ultimately, I feel like that's not really worth it. There's too many, like right now, and with Disney in control of it, it's hard to tell how they can really please enough people, because they want to please everybody, but they end up only pleasing half the people at best. And I don't see the point. I just want them to, stop. Just stop making the movies. Just stop, period, and just leave it alone.
I get it. But one way they can do it is to actually have George Lucas's vision be part of it. Now, I know what you might be thinking beyond that is, well, what about when George Lucas, God forbid, dies or moves on to, and he's completely done, he's finished his 12-movie arc. Well, you've got the people who actually learned under him. Like, yes, Dave
Filoni.
Filoni, and I'm thinking of Favreau. Yeah, Filoni. But yeah, so you've got Filoni, and then you've got Favreau, who really jumped in to rescue it in his own personal way, putting his own money and his own career at risk to make sure that he made it with the
the new bounty hunter. What the hell is that show called? Why can't I remember the name of anything right now?
Mandalorian?
Mandalorian, yeah.
Jesus Christ. I pay less attention to Star Wars than you do. I think.
I know, right?
I'm remembering all this stuff now.
The one with the shiny helmet and the gun.
The one with the people and the lasers.
Yeah.
But you've got some really, really dedicated individuals that learned under Lucas or are willing to learn under Lucas in Favreau and Filoni. Well, no, they both are currently always learning more. I think
Lucas is the key.
Yes, when he's gone, I think our trust would just naturally fall to, whether I like it or not. There are some Mandalorian episodes that I was like, but it was Star Wars. I could tell it was Star Wars. In the long run, most of the people that hated the prequels can say at least a couple of nice things about them, not including Rian Johnson. I don't include that guy about that. But I think if it has George Lucas's stamp on it, not as necessarily his approval, but if it's literally something that came from him, I think ultimately the fans can sniff that out. This last sequel trilogy it wasn't just about politics. Like, George Lucas dropped in some World War II and some Vietnam nudges, in the original trilogy, and maybe some Nazi stuff, but he didn't make it about encompassing the American political system within the ideology of Star Wars.
He made it vague enough too, to where you could also do other parallels to it. It doesn't have to be those specific ones, but you could draw those from it, but you could also draw other things from it. So yeah, it was vague enough.
It was vague enough.
Yeah.
So I think with Lucas if they really pulled it off, Disney would get their cut, which would be all the people who went to the sequel trilogy would come back to see it, most of them, because George Lucas is involved. There would be some angry people, yeah, but I think they'd still pay.
I don't know. I would like George Lucas to have his vision fulfilled. I think that'd be good. If like this was his baby, he created this. That'd be great to see what he wanted and what he imagined brought to life. But, if we're talking about reception, there's a lot of people that do not like George Lucas, or they don't like his trilogy, or they think that the originals wouldn't have been as good without everyone else that was involved in the first place. Like, it's a hard sell for a lot of people with just George Lucas. So
I know that right now, nowadays, like, a lot of people do want George Lucas, and to see his vision, that'd be also good. Like, on the level of having him get his vision achieved, that'd be great. But I don't know if that means that it'll be good. either. Like we're talking about the quality of, is it good or not? Because a lot of people have heard some of the possible script rumors of what his trilogy would have been, and stuff about the wills and the in a way there's some similar beats that's in the sequel trilogy, just done poorly as well, as from what I can tell, with the dyad maybe, or with the Morgus.
Some of the Mortis. Sorry, other people in the chat that will be seeing this later with everything. We're getting some of the names wrong. Sorry, I'm not. I've been paying attention to Star Wars too much lately, but I don't know. I think that'd be nice to see in theory, but I just ultimately don't think that's the best move overall. Though, also based on the rumor alone saying that they do all this stuff to reset the trilogy, I mean, how much would the Disney producers be willing to give to somebody like George Lucas to be able to do it? Because they're not going to get their hands off of Star Wars. They're going to keep Star Wars. That's what they want to do.
Yes.
Now they'd be letting somebody else in, but how restricted are they going to be? Because they've also been proven to do that quite a lot as well, except Rian Johnson, oddly enough. But
yeah, really,
it sounded like J.J. Abrams doing The Rise of Skywalker it was very limited in what he was able to do or what he wanted to do. So even if they go, okay, but no, we're going to trust George Lucas and Filoni and whatever, like, I don't know. That's also, I'm going to compare, Peter Jackson made Lord of the Rings, right? The movies. And, J.R.R. Tolkien made the books, but it's like, he also made The Hobbit, right? And that was received very differently compared to Lord of the Rings. The quality seems vastly different and not as well liked, not as much passion in it. And there's other things that he has his name on that isn't nearly the level of Lord of the Rings. So I don't know if the same thing could be here with this. Like, okay, we got the man back, but what's he doing? With Alien, that's another example. The Covenant and the Prometheus and all those ones. I don't remember those being so well received by everybody, especially if they're comparing to how well it was before. Some of them probably would have rather it be left alone. I don't know. That's kind of where I'm at with it. It just doesn't need to be done. Is
what I'd say. And I mean, I like the idea of seeing it possibly, but like with the future, is this something that you want every movie studio to do or every franchise to do?
No.
They make a few movies and then they go, fuck it, we'll just go back. Like Star Trek even. Okay, we made a few crappy seasons. Let's just go back, pretend that didn't exist, and then we'll do this. But then let's say, what if that's not what people want either? What if that's not good enough either? It's like, okay, well, don't worry about it. Let's do it again. It's like, how much are they going to do? And if you're the movie studio, how are you supposed to gauge what anybody wants if this is the type of thing that you got to do to try to make up for it? I'd say stick to what you did, stick with your loss.
Go forward with your loss and try to make something better in the future with it, or leave that product alone and do a different venture and see how well you do with that. That's kind of where my mindset is. I mean, M. Night Shyamalan had his areas of, he's one of the best filmmakers, to he's one of the worst filmmakers ever. Oh, he made a pretty good one over here. Like, he's got some different level of talent with that. Instead
of being stuck to the same thing, I suppose, is my point.
Overall, I think the biggest thing that really affects me about George Lucas coming back is that all of the people that tried to understand Star Wars and create it during the sequel trilogy era didn't understand Star Wars. The one that did, the one that the whole fan base, as we know it anyway, focused on, and that was Dave Filoni, who went and did a cartoon kids show. And I'm guessing that was Disney going, here, you can go over here and play with these little toys. We're going to do this, and they should have paid more attention to him, maybe put him in charge, or not in charge, but at least like a co-captain with Kathleen Kennedy or something. I think that was it was already written on the wall. It was already set in stone that Lucas had trusted in Kathleen Kennedy, who clearly stabbed him in the back, and that was that. She had her own agenda. We've seen the thing where she's like, we have to respect the characters that George created. So at that point, I think Disney put their stock in her as well and said, George, he knows what he's doing. And I'm not saying that he did make the wrong choice. We know that, but I'm not saying he did it of sound-minded body. I think
he's a tired old man who wants to make his fans happy and try to, relax for a while. I think is what he wanted. The burden of Star Wars off his shoulders for a while.
Yes, I agree.
That's what I think that was.
And I think even more so now that the woman who could make a great cup of coffee for him on the Indiana Jones set and the Star Wars set ended up being someone he had some social trust in. But Maybe just
see. I'd feel better about George Lucas specifically coming back to do the stuff if he's voiced that he wanted to. Like if he had passion for it, if he wanted to take his baby back and make it right, fix the owies and boo-boos and make it better with it, I think I'd be more for it. But it's just also an age thing, I guess. He, who knows how tired he is with all this stuff. How much effort would he put into it? I mean, it sounded like when he was doing the prequels, he wanted to get things kind of done pretty quick, which I like the prequels, guys, by the way. Freaking love that stuff. But, it's seeing his behind the scenes stuff and working on the set, it's a little disappointing, I guess, that he didn't seem that enthused about it. It was just like, film this. Okay, whatever. Go ahead. Yeah. It's like, okay, all right, that's fine, I suppose. But he was making his vision too. And that's one thing that I do stand by. I do like it when creators get to see their vision come to them. He sold his baby, and I think he'd like to see his creation come to life. But that's pretty much the only leg that I'd be okay with, is if he is able to do it full force, no restrictions. I think he should have partners that he has to abide with, but not that he has to submit to. Yeah, if that makes any sense. On some equal playing field would be nice, but that's like my only exception to it. Other than that, I think it should just be a history stamp in filmmaking that, the sequel trilogy was a bad move, and we should all learn from it. And I think a lot of us have learned from it. From the sequel trilogy, how not to do stuff. If you're going to subvert expectations, it's fine to subvert them, but you got to do it in a smart way.
Got to have tone be right. You can't just, take someone else's characters and just, fuck them and go, you're the ones with the problem. Like, no, that's things you got to learn by. And that's one of the things, too, is that if you just uncanonize it now, it's like, so what exactly do we take from that anymore? It's just an uncanonized in the ether thing. And I feel like it's a very good thing to learn from, to learn okay, what you want to do with characters is not do them like that. Pretty much, you don't want to take your characters and make them a Jake Skywalker. You don't want to, take your Han Solo and just, you don't want to make your protagonist a Rey. If it's uncanonized, it just kind of seems like, well, all right, who's our example now, really, for it? I suppose.
Who's our protagonist?
Well, who's our example? Who's our best example of a Mary Sue if we take away Rey?
Exactly.
So, if she's uncanon, it's kind of pointless to talk about. It's like, oh, well, it's uncanon now, so all right.
I think a lot of what happened with the sequel trilogy, and not to hang on that too long, I think it's just that
everybody wanted their fingers in the pie.
From the person doing the makeup to, pick anybody. The person who had to sweep the set wanted to be important.
Broom boy, yes.
Broom boy. And it just became a big cluster fucking mess. And it's what we got. And ultimately, the blame and the money loss lie in Bob Iger's hands. He had to answer to the board and the investors, and that's just, it is what it is. If we can get by this political crap, and of course we all know next year is going to be great. The election will be over. Historically, the year after an election is great. Stocks are up. Everything's fine. It doesn't matter who gets elected. It's just the next year is always great. So we know that that's probably going to come. Mm-hmm. We know that they want to possibly do this. I understand your apprehension. I do. I think if they were willing to be serious about this, they'd lost $1 billion on Rise of Skywalker. They were projected at like 2-point-something billion.
And they destroyed any toy sales with the whole series in general, which again, that's something that I hated as well with it. The prequels, you don't even have to know the name of characters, but they look cool enough for a kid to want to play with and buy them. That's what I did. Later, I learned about who they were, but as a kid, I didn't care. The Kid Fistu, he looks cool. He was in that one battle. That looks awesome. Master Plo Koon, he looks freaking awesome too. Boom.
Any of these ones, who would want to play with a Snoke?
Dirty man.
At best, somebody might play with a Rey or a Kylo, but that's at best.
Yeah, that's the best. When I was a kid, I had a Luke Skywalker and a Leia, and I had them kissing. I was like, they like each other. But Snoke's got a little ring pop. He's like that dirty old guy. Hey, kid, you want some candy?
Yes, we're maybe a Kylo space. Nickel? No? Okay.
You're pathetic.
So if they can somehow find a way to do this right, which I don't even know if there is ever a way, I feel like even if they do this as best as they can, there will be a lot of loss to it as well. Like as much as Carrie Fisher's not around, so they have to do the story around that as well, which I think is possible. They can obviously do something with it. Again, this kind of goes with, I don't think they need to. This also goes with, I don't think they need to continue right after the original trilogy. Like, I'd rather have something different, I guess, because we keep on going around this area and playing with characters already established, and it just seems to get worse. My thing is, they still have a chance to drag them through the mud, be it maybe not in the same way as Luke with the titty milk and everything, but it could still be dragged through the mud in a different way. Instead of that happening, maybe they just, have him, half naked, bottom down, drunk on a planet somewhere, still able to swing a lightsaber, but who fucking knows? You know what I mean? Like they could still screw up the characters, and that's something I don't want to happen either. Even if that's all done, that didn't happen, but now we have this where this crap happens now too. It's a Pandora's box essentially. You don't know what it is, but you could get something great or you could get something awful.
Well, I would agree that it's a Pandora's box, and you would need Pandora herself to open it to get the full, and you would have George Lucas opening George Lucas's box. So that right there is a little bit of control. In addition, I understand that it still has to go back to Disney without George Lucas at some point. They should use this as a time to where they bring him on to tutor, whatever. All the directors and the writers and other people in what it means. Not so much on how to do their job, but how to be creative in a way that suppositions the story in an appropriate way. Maybe don't bring in real world politics and things like that. Just whatever it is that he brings with himself. Hopefully it shines off onto other people. Because what happened is they bought it and they said, hey, we don't, he's like, I want to be involved in it. They're like, nah, you go sit over there in your old retired house, you old man. And he felt like, well, fine, but I had all these ideas. No, we don't need your ideas. And so he really didn't get to shine off on anybody. It was a bunch of smart ass kids who thought they knew exactly what they were doing, and clearly not. But I think if he could be part of it, open his George Lucas's box, so to speak, Pandora, I think he would be unleashing things that were actually in his own mind. And even still, let's say he passed away halfway through this. I mean, I'm not trying to put anything bad on it, but let's say that he got too old to do it and didn't die or whatever.
Yeah.
They would have the general feeling, the general idea. They know what not to do now, but they would definitely be on the right track, also knowing how to do it. If they fail, I mean, yeah, we've already seen what Star Wars failing looks like. I think I could live with at least them giving it a shot.
I guess they got to pay me to go to the theater to see their movie if that's the case, because I paid for the 3 of the sequel trilogy, wasn't satisfied. They come up with, we got another one though. I don't know. I guess it'll really depend. Really hoping that if they do it, I don't know how they should do it. That's the thing too. I don't know how they should even do it. Like there's ideas that I got too. There's ideas any of us. Star Wars is part of what helped me become a creative person today. Like when I would write my own Star Wars fan fiction stories as a kid, kind of like putting me and my buddies in like that universe, and it was horrible and everything. But that helped kickstart some creativity, trying to use that. And I mean, there's a lot of things they can do. I'm just hoping that they don't do the full opposite either of how they did it in the sequel trilogy, because everybody's like, oh, you want Luke to be just destroying, jumping around and destroying all these walkers and everything, and I'm like, I don't think we ever saw Luke really be as badass as everyone describes anyway, because at most you could say at Jabba's palace is when he kind of did, and he killed the 2 stormtroopers on the speeder, and I mean, he kind of did a few things. He threw a grenade into a walker once and blew that up, but that's like the majority of his badass flipping around traits. Sure. Not that much to record on that area. So, and honestly, we don't need to see that specifically. So I'm hoping they take, I guess, more of the characters forward rather than the action stuff, but also they just make it interesting. I don't know. So you can make it interesting. You can make a movie interesting just having 2 people in a room talking for like 20 minutes. You can make that interesting. Like, Inglourious Basterds has some of the best scenes where they're just 2 guys talking. And it's like, what is happening in the scene though? Drinking some milk and then some talking about rats for a bit, and then it turns into a much bigger conversation, sweat's dripping, it gets more serious. Like, you can make drama and tension out of just 2 people talking. So it is possible they could make a great Star Wars movie. I have my doubts. If they made it, it'd probably be at best, maybe above average is what I'm thinking at best. But I don't know. That's my thoughts though.
You had mentioned that you didn't want to see the same old the Imperial army fighting with the rebels, and it's the same. Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with that. I don't think that, and you're right. You said that also they're talking about going to the wills, and they're going to talk about the micro universe or whatever.
Yeah.
We had discussed that before.
Mhm.
It doesn't sound very appealing. I would have to agree with you on that. It doesn't.
They could make it. They could make it fine for all we know, but it's hard to tell these days if they could make something like that interesting. Again, given to the right person, they could probably make it interesting. Can George Lucas make micro universe interesting? I don't know.
I don't
I don't know about that.
know. Yeah, George does some things right, but some things not so much. You know?
Like, I guess a better example for my whole argument here would be like Han Solo. Who shot first? George Lucas made that change.
Yes, he did.
He doesn't always know what's best,
That's right.
even with his own characters.
I got to give it to you on that one. That's a hard one to come back from.
That's pretty much canon now, as far as the obeying what the creator intended thing.
Yeah.
All right. So, Flip, do you got any final thoughts on this topic?
Final thoughts. Definitely make them with George Lucas versus you don't think that they should be made, or would you prefer not? Because you don't want to see more.
I'm more on board if George Lucas is more involved, all depending on how much power he's able to express on the project. And I'm hoping that he has some type of equals with him, but he's not, having to go in whatever direction Disney tells him to go. I think they should just stop and not make any movies. That's my point, is don't even bother trying to uncanonize it. Just don't make any more. Just leave it as it is. Pack it up. You made your 9 movies. Be done. That's my point.
What if we could find a middle ground? What if it wasn't an option for you? They decided to do them anyway, and they ended up being as good as the original, trilogy. What if that happened?
I can't imagine that being a possibility.
Hypothetically,
I know you're asking me to bend here. I'd have to say it'd have to be. I don't know. It's hard for modern filmmakers to, put that much passion into something or into the story and characters these days. They usually focus on too many other things and can't make it as rewatchable. So I don't even know if that's possible. But if they somehow make it somewhere near that level, let's say in between the OT and the prequel trilogy, sure.
Sure. Okay. I like the prequel trilogy and OT for many different reasons. For them, I think ones do better than others, and even the prequel trilogy, I think, does some things better than the original trilogy, and vice versa. So somewhere in between, sure.
Okay, so it's really more of a.
But somebody else has to buy my ticket.
I'll fly up and buy you one.
I think that I'm feeling very similar to you too, in a way that if they're going to do this, and it's out of my hands, I'm really going to be hopeful that it's good. I'm going to be even more hopeful that it's not
sucking.
Especially as bad as the sequel trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm okay with them doing it so long as George Lucas is attached to it, and you're okay if they do it and you don't have any choice, but it's good. After the fact, you're kind of like, all right, well, that was cool. I'm glad they did it. Like that. But
I mean, I'd have to settle with it. I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be uncanonized. No.
I
think they've invested too deep, and I don't think they want to pull out.
In closing, I want to argue that point. You really think that it's not going to happen, and that your point is that they've invested too much now, and that's it.
I think they've invested too much in how they've done it and don't want to erase what they've done.
Okay. I think that they're willing to because of the Super C virus and their major losses from the theaters being shut down and their movies going straight to video, whatever there is that has gone straight to video or currently will. They're in a real pickle financially.
Well, but they also have Disney Plus as an option to put things onto, which gives people more incentive to get their subscription. So I don't consider that a big loss.
Well, an argument for that in Disney Plus, the Disney Plus arena is that they've had Mandalorian be very successful, signed it up for a second season. They're working on it as we speak, and it's not going to be altered from what I understand. They're letting Favreau and his crew develop it the way they want to. if they've decided that, then they've obviously seen that there's a way to make money doing it the other way versus the losses that they took from the rise of Palpatine or the last FA, you know.
Tross. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm hoping
that that's what they're seeing. If you're right, and they actually put everything into a straight-to-video format for now, because God forbid the next 2 years are all supersede out and we can't leave our houses and we're stuck in these masks, etc.
Yeah, they probably won't do them. I think you'd be right on that. And if they do, why would they? Because they've got the Mandalorian and whatever else they want to do.
Again, I feel like they're filling in too much of the universe in a way. Like you need to have some mystery, and the more answers, the more stuff they answer, the worse it is. That's what I feel too.
You're playing off something you said earlier, where you'd like to see something other, and I meant to go into this a minute ago. You'd like to see something other than the same old thing with Star Wars. There's an empire. There's a big, whatever. I thought that with the idea behind the New Republic sounds like the same old thing to me. With there's an empire, but maybe you could follow like what George Lucas originally saw. That one of the things he saw was the Kurosawa samurai movies, and he thought, "Oh wow, these are incredible. I've never seen anything like them." That's a quote from George Lucas. I've never seen anything like them. I want to see more because I don't understand them, but I like what I see. Maybe follow a young Jedi who doesn't know what he is. He's got the Force. He's from a planet outside of that same galaxy altogether, and just what happens.
I could follow something like that. I argue that they could make a good Star Wars movie just based on one planet alone. You don't need to go to a bunch of other ones. You can make a good story there. You could still have it within the rules of the universe. You could still make something interesting happen. So I'm up for something like that. But I guess my point was more, I'm okay if they make some
kind of Star Wars movies that aren't necessarily direct continuations of the original and prequel trilogy, they don't like they are the episode 7, 8, 9, 10 and all that stuff. Just more Rogue Ones in a way, though I actually hate Rogue One. But the concept of it's not a mainline movie and it's in the same universe essentially.
Oh, I see. Yeah,
that's what I meant.
I've noticed that the Star Wars that I have actually liked, it's not because that. Well, I didn't like it because there were lightsabers, because God knows there were no lightsabers in Rogue One except for at the end, which was awesome. But you had no lightsabers in The Mandalorian, I don't think. Not that I can recall. And you've got no lightsabers in Rogue One except for at the end. I liked it because it was good Star Wars. It was a good story. It was in the same universe, and they didn't have to go into some strange agenda. But and if there was one, I must have missed it, so I'm cool with that. But you know what? I lowered my expectations to like all of those. I'll be honest with you. I know I did. Because once I was fed the bull crap that the first Force Awakens movie was, I was convinced I liked it. At first, I was convinced. And the more I watched, the more I saw where they were going. Obviously, I didn't. So just like I was saying a moment ago, and just like you seem to agree, I think that if we are going to go into a new Star Wars realm, let Lucas wrap up his vision. This is my opinion. Let him wrap up his vision. Let him do it right. Let him go to bed with, you know what? I got done. I did it, And his passion to me, I saw an interview with him recently. His passion is to get back in there and to get it done. You mentioned earlier you didn't see him with passion. I'll try and get that link together for you, and you can check it out. Maybe we can even drop it in this description.
Okay.
His passion is there, very much so. He wants it back.
I'm just imagining him sitting down though, like with his coffee, just like,
yep, that's my life now. They done did that a different way than I would have.
Yeah.
No, he has this air about him where he really regrets what he did. What I've seen, he seems to be like excited when he talks about the original Star Wars and making it and what he went through, and he's excited when he talks about how they changed and revolutionized special effects and all that the first time and in the prequels. And when you see his face light up, and then they mention the possibility of him coming back to work, he's a little shifty-eyed, but then he gets excited and starts talking about everything again. Now, I don't know. If he ever does anything, Let him finish all that. Then I want to see something really new and interesting, just like you. I really do. Something that's not on par with the norm of the Star Wars universe.
Okay, I agree.
I agree.
I think that puts an end to this Star Wars discussion over here. I'm hoping that everybody enjoyed this conversation over here. This is a new format that we're trying out, trying to see. We'll still do our live streams and stuff, but we're trying to see if we can do these little discussions without having the chat, and we can go back and edit out any parts we drag on too long. It's kind of annoying to watch on a replay or something, or maybe add in some visuals along the way for you guys. So, Flip, any closing statements you want to do before we close out?
Yeah, thanks for coming to this first original Patreon release, and we hope you like this this new format. And we're going to do a few more of these, and hopefully be asked to do even more. And thanks for coming by.
All right, I like that. Let us know what you guys think about the Star Wars sequel trilogy being uncanonized or not down in the comments below. And have a great rest of your day.